In Stavropol, a veteran of the war in Ukraine, Zor Gertsev, who was responsible for the Mariupol bombing, died in an explosion. After returning from the front, he became a participant in the Time of Heroes program and the first deputy head of the city administration. This was reported by the governor of Stavropol Krai, Vladimir Vladimirov. The governor wrote that Gertsev died as a result of a nighttime incident on Chekhov Street, without specifying what kind of incident it was. He added that law enforcement agencies and special services were working at the scene. All versions are being considered, including the organization of a terrorist attack involving Nazis from Ukraine, he said. As reported by media, Gertsev led the air unit of the operation to capture Mariupol. In particular, he implemented his developments in the technology of targeting missiles, which allowed them to significantly increase their accuracy and efficiency, including hitting the supply base of Azov. According to Russian media, they could have used a suicide bomber, 29-year-old Nikita Penkov, to blow up Zor Gertsev. It is reported that at the beginning of May, Penkov rented an apartment in a high-rise building on Chekhov Street, near which an explosion thundered. Gertsev allegedly came to the house himself, but it is not yet known for what reason and how closely he was acquainted with Penkov. It is assumed that the explosive device was located on Penkov itself. According to one of the versions, he could not have known that the explosive detonated, it could have been set off remotely. Earlier it was reported that a grenade was used for the murder. The power of the SVU, which blew up the deputy head of Stavropol, Zor Gertsev, is about 300 grams in TNT equivalent. Immediately after the explosion, the official lived for almost 5 minutes, after which he died. In the first seconds, he tried to crawl away from the scene of the tragedy. SVU was in the bag of Nikita Penkova. The device was painless, so there were no debris left after the explosion. Penkov was aware that he had an SVU and himself brought it into action. This is also confirmed by the fact that before the explosion he came as close as possible to Gertsev from the left side, where he had a bag. Stavropol Mayor Ivan Ulyanchenko reported earlier that there was a bang near a residential building on 8519 Chekhov Street and 2 men were killed. Telegram channels Mash and Shot wrote that a grenade was presumably detonated. Several cars were damaged in the explosion. Gertsev, 34, became a participant in the presidential personnel program, Time of Heroes, in May 2024. The program's website reports that he led the airborne part of the Russian troops' operation to capture Mariupol, and also received several awards, one of them for Avdiivka, in the Donetsk region, where fighting took place. In September of the same year, Gertsev was appointed first deputy head of the city of Stavropol.
The Russian occupation army has been advancing in Ukraine for over a year and a half, since the fall of 2023. Moreover, this offensive is taking place according to the same scheme with minor deviations, as was the case with the attempted offensive in the Kharkiv region. Today, the enemy's main operational goal is to capture the agglomeration of Slovyansk, Kramatorsk, Konstantinivka, Druzhkivka, Pokrovsk. The capture of regional centers, in particular Sumy and Kharkiv, is a desirable but completely unachievable goal of the occupier. If the aggressor country tries to attack Ukraine from Transnistria, it could end with the disappearance of this enclave. And what about a counter-offensive by the armed forces of Ukraine? Based on information from open sources, the Ukrainian army currently does not have the resources for such a move, but there is a possibility that the General Staff will surprise the enemy, as was the case with the Kursk region. This opinion was expressed in an exclusive interview with Oboz Revitel media outlet by Israeli military observer David Sharp. To set the task of capturing the same Kharkiv or Sumy, you need to attract a very large group, gather it, and attack in the appropriate directions that are relevant for such an offensive. But, based on open sources, we do not see that such a grouping is being created. Several battalions in order to advance on a short section is not at all the same. And since we do not see such a grouping, the considerations about it are purely philosophical in nature. I will say more. Russia has been attacking since the fall of 2023 for over a year and a half. It has been attacking in approximately the same pattern. Yes, sometimes there are some surprises. For example, a small offensive in the Kharkiv region was, although not a surprise, but a departure from the usual framework. Within the usual framework, they press, look for weak points, try to slowly advance and achieve a collapse of the front in some areas and then advance further. An example is Ocheretine, Kurakovo, Selidov, etc. In order to attack the regional center with large forces, it is necessary to concentrate these large forces and act contrary to the logic that we have seen for a year and a half. So while we do not see any groups, this is a philosophical conversation, but there are enough problems and their real efforts on other sections of the front, he added. Theoretically, I cannot rule out that somewhere the command of the armed forces of Ukraine will try to deliver a surprise with relatively small forces. To some extent, such a surprise was the offensive in the Kursk region in 2024. However, what this offensive led to raises questions. So the main thing is the availability of resources. If you have the capabilities for a successful offensive operation, of course, you cannot refuse it. But today the main task of the Ukrainian army, without connection with the negotiation process, is the most successful defense. Most likely, there are no resources for anything more, he told.